The world's very best poker players once again descend on London as we bring you Season 3 of the $1 Million Cash Game. Aggressive, unpredictable and a great reader of his opponents, Patrick Antonius has amassed winnings of almost $3 million and will be looking to make good after that huge loss to Phil Ivey in Season 2. Andy the Rock Block makes a welcome return to the $1 Million Cash Game and has one of the sharpest brains in poker. He was also part of the infamous MIT Blackjack team. Mike the Mouth Mattisau is certainly that. The most outspoken and volatile player at any table. He will certainly turn up the heat at this one. He had an explosive Season 1 and has a point to prove. Frenchman David Benjamin is a new face at the $1 Million Cash Game, and the former tennis pro is sure to be looking to improve on his already impressive poker record. Better known as Durr, Tom Dwan is an online poker prodigy, still relatively new to live poker. Tom will have his hands full as he sits amongst some of the toughest opposition ever assembled. Phil Hellmuth may have the best CV in poker history, but he joins the $1 Million Cash Game for the very first time. Known as the Poker Brat, sparks are sure to fly with him at the table. Phil Ivey took down a record $800,000 pot in Season 2. Regarded by many as the best player in the world, he'll be a quiet colossus at the table and is no doubt the one to beat. Former world champion Chris Jesus Ferguson is the tightest player in the field. He's fiercely analytical, and if he's in a hand, he's usually in with a strong chance of taking it down. Hello and welcome to the Full Tilt Poker.net $1 Million Cash Game from here in central London. We've already got over $2.5 million in play at the table. The stakes are high and we have seen some eye-watering pots as well. Plenty more of the same in this show too, as we hand over to your commentators, Gary Jones and David Tuckman.
We're at the Full Tilt Poker.net $1 Million Cash Game. I'm David Tuckman alongside professional poker player Gary Jones. And we have some new developments in the game. Tom Dwan, our 22-year-old internet star, has rebought for another $100,000. He is now in for over $500,000. And by the way, he is down over $300,000. How does he regroup, Gary?
Well, he's had swings like this plenty of times in his poker playing career. That's how tough a table I had on day 6.
David Benjamin taking a break. You know, taking all those chips from Tom Dwan can get tiring.
Yeah, I think he can afford to take a break. He's having a very good day.
He is approaching the $800,000 mark, and he is now up over $250,000.
Pass.
Well, the race from Tom Dwan gets 3 callers, including Andy Block with King 7. He was in the big blind, admittedly.
2, Jack, 8.
Well, fortune smiling on Tom. He catches the 8. Gives him the best hand right now, as he had before the flop.
And I hate to harp on it, because Andy Block is a fantastic mixed game player, but he seems a little bit out of his element in No Limit. Tom Dwan, that's the kind of player he feasts on, isn't it?
Exactly. Looks like Phil's calling to try and take him off this pot on the turn. Not much for him right now. Well, nothing for him right now.
But he's floating one here. He knows that Dwan doesn't necessarily need a hand to bet. Well, the 5 of clubs helps neither player. Pot is nearly $21,000. And if you're in Dwan's position, his hand definitely has showdown value. How do you play it? He checks it.
Yeah, it looks like he wants to go for a check call here.
Maybe induce a bluff?
Yeah, quite possibly. He's beating any 8, any deuce, any draw. The only thing he's not beating is a jack.
The only draw I can really see up there is maybe 9-10. Which of course would be an open-ended straight draw.
12,000.
And Ivy bets about 60% of the pot. Bets 12,000. Pot now $32,700. Back to Dwan. Now, of course, if he calls this, he has to know that he might face a big river bet. Is he prepared to call off a lot of his chips with just second pair?
I don't want to fly on somebody.
He looks like he might be raising this. Is there any value to raising this?
Well, he is protecting his hand, but he's not going to get a jack. Well, he might get a jack to lay down.
I mean, does he think he's behind you?
I don't know what's going through his head. I'll be honest with you here, Dave.
300 more.
Well, actually, it looks more like 150,000 more. I think he's making the kids sweat.
The interesting thing is, Ivy knows exactly the type of player that Durr is.
Yeah, they played an awful lot together online.
And I can't help but think that Ivy was like that, maybe just 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Obviously, Phil Ivey has honed his game at Atlantic City in New Jersey before playing all over the world. And if you think Ivey's a good no-limit player, his best game is actually stud. Chris Ferguson watching intently. Pot is 77,000. Action back to Ivy. Pot is 77,000. It's 32,000 back to Ivy. And Ivy's going to pick a better spot. Obviously, he wasn't going to call. It was a raise or a fold, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. When he sees the hand later on, he's going to think, I should have gone with my instincts. But for now, Tom Dwan actually wins a nice pot.
We're at the FullTiltPoker.net $1 Million Cash Game. I'm David Tuckman alongside professional poker player Gary Jones. And we are watching 8, but actually right now 7 of the finest poker players you'll ever see at one table. Patrick Antonius in seat number 1 is taking a little bit of a break.
Why don't we wait for Patrick to be here?
And apparently the button is in front of the empty seat.
Thank you.
We'll do it next time.
Okay, 12 under straddle.
They said they want to wait till Patrick gets back, so no straddle.
No.
No, Chris.
So in fact, Chris Ferguson actually has the button here.
Well, you know what? Have a look at my hand.
Wait till we get some Chris.
But it's not random.
Benjamin is going to straddle this pot.
1200 straddle.
And the action is on Mr. Tom Dwan.
Just because I had it, and it just will feel terrible if somebody has a hand
And he's raising it up.
4,000 to play.
for him. Not for
4,000's the bet.
Not open for 4,000 when somebody's
12 to play.
Instant re-raise from Phil Helmuth to 12,000.
Pass.
Fold. It's still making
12,000.
Bit of a raise with King 10. Playing the player, I think, as much as his cards.
I had Durr's favorite hand from yesterday.
Yeah, these players are definitely on to Tom Dwan.
Fold.
And after having spoken to Tom Dwan, I have to say, a delightful young man.
Yeah, real nice chap. $9-7 for Tom.